Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Collado, and I'm a member of the managers teams of in Plena Inclusion. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. We are celebrating the first of the three working sessions, online working sessions that we will be holding between September and November with the goal of reflecting on the importance of what we call the communities of care. This is a series of seminars called Strategy of the Communities of Care. This has been organized by Plena Inclusion and the international network, Citizens Network, within the project Mi Casa Alive within the communities. This is supported by Next Gen funds of the European Union, and it is aimed at exploring new opportunities and individualized care so that people with certain disabilities, developmental disabilities, for instance, can join the life in the towns and cities. For this, we need to create what we call communities of care, neighborhoods and towns that are welcoming, that are supporting, where the neighbors can provide care to everyone who needs it. Communities that are accessible, that are inclusive, that are diverse, where we take care of each other. In these seminars, we're going to be thinking together about these communities, what we need to create them, how we can have the neighbors involved in this, and how people with disabilities can also join in and involve themselves in these communities. And we will also tell you about certain practical examples who will be told to the rest of us by the protagonists. Also, we would like to thank our colleagues from Citizen Network, which is an organization with whom we are working hand in hand in the field of social innovation. I would also like to thank specifically all these people who are connecting from Latin America. We feel that they are very close to us, despite the fact that they are at the other side of the ocean. We invite you to take part in the upcoming events that we will be holding on this topic that will take place on the 15th and 19th of November in the in the website of Plena Inclusion, plenainclusion.org. You can register for free. And without further ado, I will leave you with Sofia Reyes, who will be introducing the rest of our speakers and the work for today. Thank you so much, Daniel. We are starting this series of seminars. This is very exciting for us. And before anything, I know that my colleagues are writing this down in the chat, but as you know, this is a series of seminars that will be held in Spanish and English. So as part of this seminar, you will hear speakers from who speak in English and in Spanish. If you need interpretation to follow them, you just need to click on the button that says interpretation at the bottom, and you can choose the language in which you would like to listen to this seminar. So this is the housekeeping part, and we can proceed now. We want to welcome everyone who is part of Plena Inclusion Network and Citizen Network. And we would like to thank all these people joining this seminar from Latin America, all these people who are here from the other side of the ocean, because this is a very special day to us, and we wanted specifically to be closer to you. I don't know if you know that we are part also of Citizen Network, and I don't know if you know what this is about. This is a global network where we want to have everyone on board. We don't want to leave anybody behind, and all the people participating in this network, we believe that we are all equal and that we can uh, provide different things, different strengths, different talents that we can use to create more inclusive communities that are more welcoming communities, always having the human beings as at the core in this network. We also believe that in order to tackle the big problems that the world is facing at the moment as citizens, we need to work together to create such communities that are inclusive and where everyone can share their gifts. We would also like to invite you all coming from Mexico, from Chile, from Argentina. We would like to invite you all to access the website of Citizen Network and join us there to see all the people, all the countries that are working within the network and that are connected. I see that there are many people still coming in. As you can see, this is not exactly a webinar where you can only see the speaker. And now we can see each other's faces. We see almost 100 faces, almost 100 screens. And this makes a lot of sense. We did this on purpose because we think that it is important that we see each other, that we know each other. If we want to collaborate, if we want to work together, it is very important that we know who we are on top of the screen, and we can see Marcus, Laura, Amor, Gloria, Naila. Welcome everyone. Simon, Carlos, Sandra, Erika, Carmen, Lucila, so many people. It makes me very happy. So this is the Citizen Network. Many people connecting, many people participating. You have the link to Menti in the chat so that you can join this network. And first of all, I would like to welcome. And then my second question here for you is, if we've done this well, if this is the first time we try this, can you click on the place where you come from to let us know where you are coming from? This is the first time we're trying this, but I see that people are coming from Argentina, from Spain, from Finland. I suppose that we're going to see many people from Spain, also from Argentina, the United States. And in Argentina, there might be different areas from the Canary Islands as well. Well, we're going to also leave this map active. So we wanted to know where exactly you were joining this meeting today. So I know that using the Menti system is not always uh, easy, but you can still click on it. And now we're going to split this meeting. Uh, and we're going to have a breakout room. We're going to make different rooms of about 10 people, maybe, so that we can talk with each other for 10 minutes. But there's a big question that we need to ask ourselves. And this is what the webinar is going to be about, because we are going to have Simon Duffy, who is going to explain what the inclusive communities are. We will also have Pablo and Neila from Argentina telling us about the Argentina Independent Life Network. Also, we're going to hear Esteban Corsino telling us about Scotland and Spain and the network between the two countries. And we're also going to have Marcus telling us about the self-directed support within the citizen network. So we're going to be for 10 minutes in the breakout rooms. And my first question for you is, how can we be good citizens and how we can contribute to our different neighborhoods and be these good citizens that we aim at being? So good luck. I hope that in the breakout rooms, there will be no translation so that you know. Welcome back to our plenary room. I think that we're all back. My name is Fermin Nunez. I am the coordinator of within Plena Inclusion, and it is my job today to explain the conclusions of the different breakout rooms. We hope that you had enough time, but in case this wasn't the case, just use the chat, and we will also leave the Menti open so that you can leave your answers to the question that we asked. let us share the conclusions, what you have said within the breakout rooms about this question that we asked you, how we could be good citizens. Up until now, we have nine responses. I think that my colleague is already sharing those on the screen. You are telling us by not leaving anyone behind and also inviting people to have a slice of cake when they come to our neighborhood, to listen by listening to the needs of our neighbors, also to by paying attention to the gifts and the talents of everyone, also by exercising our rights and duties in relation with the community, also participating, getting to know the neighbors of our neighborhood. To me, it is a bunch of things: to respect the rights of other people, to comply with the rules, to participate actively in the community, to respect diversity and to promote peace and justice, to be empathetic with others and to be aware of the needs of other people, to have a curious outlook of the world, to support the community, to attain at achieving integration, especially of people with disabilities, to create room for sharing, to promote different activities. And there's another one in English that says, love the people and the place we live in. Uh, Basically to support each other. And also I see another response about mutual help among the neighbors. As I said, if somebody else wants to contribute to this list of responses, you can also do that by using the chat. And we will be collecting all these responses to include them in the Menti space. Let us introduce our very special guest who has been working with us from Citizen Network for a very long time. I have his resume here, so I don't forget anything. Simon Jaffe is a Christian, a socialist, who believes that we need to work together to ensure that all of us can develop and share our unique gifts. The first works of Simon's were focused in empowering people with disabilities and their families. Later on, he has been focusing also in reflecting about how the political and social systems need to be modified in order to give full citizenship to everyone. He has been a counselor for different policies. In 1996, he created Inclusion Glasgow, and he helped creating other organizations in Scotland. In 1999, he started working in designing support systems, self-directed systems for local authorities. Since 2003 to 2009, he also worked in developing personal budgets in England. This was a very innovative solution that for us in Spain, but that they have been using for many years. And he did this in cooperation with another organization. He has also supported the Just Society and has participated in many different activities. And he's also a member at the moment of the Citizen Network. Uh, at the end of the day, he is working to create a world where we are all equal to each other, where we value and respect diversity of everyone. And today he's going to be telling us what we understand when we talk about communities of care. And without further ado, Simon, the floor is yours.
Gracias, Fermin. That was a lovely introduction, very kind, and lo siento todo del mundo because I won't be speaking Spanish. My Spanish is not good enough. It gets a little better every day, but not good enough. Um, so I'm going to use some slides. Fermin, about 20 minutes, do you think? Talk for about 20? Yeah. Okay. Um, Tell me if I should be okay at keeping time, but if I wander, you tell me, okay? Okay, I'm going to share my screen for some slides. And okay, so in a way, the words here can be slippery because obviously I'm not only talking in English, but I'm thinking in English, and the words may be confusing in a way. The word community, the word neighborhood, all have slightly different meanings in English that might not be communicated well in Spanish. And in a way, the word neighborhood care in English is meant to be signaling a radical change in thinking, at least for some countries that have lost sight of the importance of el barrio, the small communities that what in English we call neighborhoods. So you may think some of this may just seem quite different from a Spanish or from a South American or Central American perspective. And forgive me if some of it seems a little bit odd, but I hope that as I tell the story of why I think we need to change our thinking, that you'll find patterns that are useful and relevant. And basically, I'm going to start by talking about this process of deinstitutionalization by asking what created the force of institutionalization. If we're moving away from institutions, we need to understand the forces that drive people into institutions. I'm going to suggest that our whole way of thinking, certainly in many countries, is still too dominated by thinking about services first, communities much, much later. I'm going to suggest that we need to be thinking about citizenship, not just the rights of citizenship, but also the responsibilities of citizenship. And that therefore our attention needs to go to thinking about neighborhoods as kind of ecological units, as the conditions in which we live. So not just always thinking about the individual, although the individual is critically important, but thinking about the individual in the context of community. And I'm going to end by talking about a few innovations that I think show the emerging change. A few of these images I have translated into Spanish, but this one I haven't, I'm afraid. And what this is indicating, I think, is this idea that many of our problems start upstream. So if you think about why people end up in institutions, the first thing that causes is often the failure of services to support people in the right way in community. But before that is a kind of failure of citizen power and responsibility and resources. Before that is often a breakdown in family support. And family support often breaks down because communities are not organized to support families effectively. And communities kind of break down because the social and economic conditions are driving harm into our communities. And even that even goes back to our relationship with nature, which over hundreds of years has become very, very distant in most places, so that we become much more reliant on socioeconomic systems to retain our sustainability in community than we do on nature. We're often very distant from nature. And the challenge and why this is represented as a kind of mountain where gravity seems to push problems downhill is that what can happen is that the problems we face, the institutional forces that we create, often are very difficult to shift. And it takes a lot of creativity and innovation to move away from those systems, even when everybody's saying, oh, yes, we shouldn't have people in institutions, in big homes, in prisons. The forces that get people there are still very, very powerful. Where we've made some progress, and say, for instance, in England, we have closed all the big institutions. The last institution closed in 2010. But even when we closed the institutions, what we often replaced those institutions was not a life in community, not a life of inclusion, but a life in centres and services, which you could think of as, better than exclusive camps that people take people completely out of community, but they become like ghettos. So a person with disabilities very often is living only in a very controlled environment, not really experiencing community as a full citizen. And don't worry about this is a horrible slide in a way, but it just gives you an indication of how far we still have to go. So this is just English data, and this is describing what happened. You can see right at the bottom of the screen, you see the grey bar, which says this is how many people, 400,000 people with learning intellectual disabilities were in institutions. And now nobody are in institutions. But if you look at the other bars on the chart, you'll see that many people are not in community life, not in their own homes. They're either still living with family, or they're in smaller institutional services in community. And today, these forces still drive people into those institutional services. So a few years ago, there was a big scandal in England. There was a unit where there were people with learning disabilities, and a TV camera crew got inside and managed to film abuse. And this went on television. This was in 2011. And there was a big shock. And the government said, oh, we're going to do something about this. We're going to close these kind of places. This is not a big institution, but this is a kind of small, medium-sized institution. And today, this is now 13 years ago, no real progress has been made in closing those institutions, those smaller institutions. And I met many of the families whose children were in that institution, and I interviewed them to find out how did they get into the institution. And although the details of the stories were different, the general pattern always followed this kind of logic. So the family would be coping. There would be a young person with complex disabilities, different kinds, and then there'd be some kind of crisis. The family would typically be quite poor. They would be poorly connected, poorly supported, and they might face other disadvantages. The first response of the system to this crisis might be sickness in the family, or something bad's happened to the young person, or to something's gone wrong. The first response was to place the young person in an institutional environment, in what we would call a group home, living with maybe 5, 10 other people. Then so many of those people, they were angry, they missed their family, they were upset, they were taken out of the community. They were then, because they were angry, they were moved further away from their community into a bigger unit, spending more money. And so this pattern would continue. The person would get angry. They would be, oh, you're challenging, you're a difficult person. We need to provide you with a more expensive service, even further away from home. And so people would move hundreds of miles, hundreds of kilometers away from their home, away from their neighborhood. And families could take decades to try and get the child who would grow into an adult and spend many, many years in these very poor environments, decades to get them back into a life of community. So this is a typical problem, certainly in England, but I don't think it's just restricted to England. Now, this is in Spanish. So I call this the kind of inclusion tree. So on this tree, you can see lots of words that are the innovations that many of us, going back over 40, 50 years, there have been many innovations that demonstrate that real inclusion is possible. So inclusive education, self-directed support, personal assistance, all of these things together can create the opportunities for an individual to move into community life for real, to be a real citizen. So this is the kind of paradox. Really, we do know how to include everyone in community. I'm sure other people here have done so, but me and my friends have worked with people who the system has said this person will never fit in community. And when you listen to them, you listen to their family, you use creativity, you can find how to support them to live a good, rich community life. That's just a fact. That's true. So we know how to help people live in community, but do we know how to create inclusive communities? And this is the subtle difference we need to start thinking about. It's one thing to be able to, once a problem has happened, to be able to find a good solution after a lot of energy and pain and stress. It's a different thing to try and create communities where those kind of problems do not happen. In the work of Citizen Network and the work of all our allies, we increasingly think it's useful to think about our objective here as helping people build a life of citizenship. But also that means not just helping other people build a life of citizenship, but it's also about us being citizens. And this model of the 7 keys to citizenship, and we're, I hope, very soon going to publish a Spanish version of the book about this. Actually, I haven't chatted to Sophia about how all of the translation is going on this, but this idea is one that I think a lot of people find quite useful for thinking about the purpose of the work. But I also think we need to make another switch in our thinking. And for Citizen Network, we talk about the kind of, we call this the flower of citizenship. Maybe there's a better word, but really just thinking about what is it that citizens do? Not just what do citizens receive, how do citizens live, but what is the work of citizenship? Yes, and so this is a framework that we use to just capture some of the important dimensions of the work of citizenship. Work we all share responsibility for, including people with intellectual disabilities who are often the best citizens if they are given the chance to be citizens. So the work of citizenship is to welcome, to include, to ensure that everybody is part of the community. It's to take care of each other, to provide support to each other so everybody can flourish. It's to make decisions together, democracy. It's to share the things we need so that everybody has enough. And it's to take care of the world that we live in, the natural world that we live in. Now, this, I think, means that what becomes much more important in the way we think about how we are citizens are the small places we live in. I am not saying that those small neighborhoods, the barrios, are the only thing to think about, or that other kind of communities are not important. All forms of community are important. I support a particular football team, Bolton Wanderers. So I'm part of the fan community for Bolton Wanderers. And we all have our own different communities that reflect our interests. But when we come home, we belong somewhere that needs taking care of. That community of neighbours, that community of streets, the trees, the parks, the gardens, the places where we grow food, all of those things need us to take care of them. So I think we can't forget the importance of the barrio in the way we think about the future. Every small place needs people who are passionate about making sure that citizenship flourishes in that small place. And I think that we need to change the way we think to adopt a more ecological approach to change. Um, you know, a lot of the great work to close institutions and to develop patterns of inclusive practice is still often quite system focused. It implies there's a solution, one course of action, or maybe a small set of actions, and that the government can make these things happen with the right policies. But an ecological approach says actually a lot of the solutions come out of the soil, the work that we do together in our communities. They create the conditions for innovation and change. Now, the following image, if it's the one I think it is, yes, this is a horrible image, okay, because it's far too complicated. And it just reflects the fact that personally, I'm still working on how to define the elements of the ecology of a caring neighborhood, if that makes sense. So I'm really interested in working with you and your partners and listening to what's working and see if we can find good ways of understanding the underlying systems. And I won't go through all of the details of this image, but just to take the main portions of it, one of the things we need to do in thinking about uh, engaging people as citizens in their community is we need to think about how people grow in confidence as citizens. And what skills do people know? How do people learn? How do we share learning? Becomes a really important part. So that's down in the blue section. And the other thing we need to think about, if you like, is up in the yellow section, is the rhythms, the spaces, the actions that communities take that bring people together. This seminar is a space that Plena has created to bring us together where community can kind of happen. But what are the good spaces? What do we know about the good spaces that we're creating to grow community? The third section is the action section. And you could think about what are all the roles we need to play? We need to sometimes give people definite roles. And actually, in Mikasa, the great work was done to define two critical roles, a kind of planning role and a connecting role. And that reflects what we've learned, that sometimes people need help to be creative, to find good solutions. And sometimes we need people who are going and looking for capacity in communities and connections that can be made in communities. But I've also learned that people with disabilities can play really vital roles doing those two jobs, but also doing other things like people providing support to each other. In the community that I love close to me, the people with disabilities provide a community warden service, which means they go from door to door, making sure that nobody's alone and everybody is safe. How cool is that? So people with disabilities can actually lead the change, take on powerful roles in our community. And in the green corner is the side of money. So thinking about money differently is very important, I think. How does the money stay in the community? Where are the professional services based? Very often, certainly in England, most care money is spent somewhere else. Because people are being placed in residential care or group homes, we're basically taking money that should be spent in neighborhoods, providing people with support in their community, providing local people with jobs in their community, providing local businesses with spending in their community. We're taking that money and moving out of the community as a society. So, and in the middle of this picture, I've suggested some of the kind of key principles, like, let's spend money locally. Let's stop exporting people from their community. But I'm not going to go through everything on this picture. You'll be thankful to know. This is really pretty much the end. These are just like 6 quick examples of things to think about. So actually the Power and Connection is just a book that we published a couple of years ago about local area coordination. So this is a model of community connection that was developed in the 1980s in Australia, and it's slowly spreading around the world. And I know that Plena was looking at this work when thinking about the community connecting work. In the middle is the Camarados mug. This is a lovely social enterprise started by a friend of mine called MAF Pots, and it's spread around the world. And they do a whole load of things just to help people really just connect as human beings. One of their ideas is called public living rooms. Salas. So they basically, in a street, they will set up a sofa, and they will pour cups of tea and encourage people to just sit and meet in the community. And again, often people with disabilities are leading the development of these public spaces that bring people together in community. On the right-hand side, this is an image from an organization that actually I went to visit them last week. And they're a community hub where people can run social enterprises and meet and do arts and selling. So they're creating a whole business at the center of a community to bring life to that community. On this funny slide here, you'll see investing in active citizenship. They see this word small sparks. This is an idea from Seattle in the northwest of America. It again was developed I think in the 1990s. Very small grants that people can apply for if they've got an idea to bring something good to their community. So in creating a kind of an economic system to encourage people to make community change happen, and people with disabilities often leading that work. In the group at the bottom, in the middle, that's the group from Doncaster who do the community wardens. There they are in Doncaster Rovers. That's a big football team in there, and they have a great relationship with the football team. And they do things like they've got a group for people, lesbian, gay, bisexual group, which uses the gym because at the football stadium. And also they've got a group of Muslim ladies, and also they've got a group of veterans, and all of these groups who you might think are quite different and might have conflict, all work together, all work in partnership with communities like the football team. And the last slide, which is just this pie chart, is about the work actually of Inclusion Glasgow, which is one of the organisations I set up. And the researchers asked people what made the difference that improved people's lives. And you can see that the organisation made 32% of the difference. This may not be very scientific, but I think it's interesting. So the support organisation made 32% of the difference. You may think that's very low, not very good. I think it's brilliant because it means the support was organised so that all of those other kinds of support were possible. Because what Inclusion Glasgow did was made sure people had real community lives with family, with friends, with taking part in the community so that they could have the opportunities to build a good life. Support providers can only do so much. We need to liberate people so that they can live lives of citizenship and they can transform community. So that's my hope, is that we can learn what neighbourhood care really means. I think this is the new horizon. It's beyond deinstitutionalization. It's taking us into where we need to be in the 21st century, and a way that's sustainable and ecological and environmentally sustainable for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Well, Simon, I don't know if you would like to introduce the next speakers from Argentina, or would you like me to do the introduction?
Por favor.
Okay, so that's great. We're going to leave the floor now to Pablo and Naila. These are two colleagues coming from Argentina. They are very good friends of ours, and they're going to tell us today about the work that they're doing with the network that that is made up of different organizations in Argentina. It's the call to the Argentinian Independent Life Network. Pablo is the director of Fundación Caminos, and Naila Quintana is the director of the social inclusion area in ADI. We are very grateful for you being here today. The floor is yours. Thank you, Sophia, and thank you, Simon, for your presentation. We share this idea of what a neighborhood is. So I will be telling you a little bit about us. First of all, we would like to thank you for the opportunity of participating in this meeting. We are a small emerging network of different institutions working from different approaches in favor of the rights of people with disabilities in different regions of Argentine, and we are very concerned about the right to having an independent life. We are certain that there's no independence if there is no trade context. There is an autonomy that is possible if it is connected to other people. These connections are not between two or three individuals, but they need to be exchange networks that do not have a core um, a core actor. It is about having a collaboration network where we can exchange within the community, where we influence each other. We are talking about real individuals with their full bodies being present in this network. We believe this is what makes up a neighborhood. So it is very important to highlight certain characteristics that shape the relationships within our country. First of all, we would like to tell you that most of people with disabilities up until the 80s of last century were in a sort of lockdown in their houses. They could not participate of all the paths that were aimed at normal, between brackets, people. They were outside the rights and the duties that they were entitled to as citizens. In Argentine, the association movement was pushed by the families, and this association movement was born, and it created a system that is integral, that had different services in it. And the key to the growth of such movement was to find the way to create different working groups and a source of funding that is based on social contributions by the workers. Those contributions create a fund that is regulated by the state by law, and they state the different values of the amounts, the subsidies. So they decide the amount that corresponds to each person, and they also need to decide what services can be added to the initial services. These association movement was trying to give an answer to a core question: what will happen with our children when we're not here anymore? So in order to respond to this question, we privileged the safety within the households, as has happened in many places around the world. Other important topics that we wanted to give a response to were the schooling alternatives for the children and the working spaces for the adults. Thanks to these association movement, services aimed at people with disabilities multiplied very quickly. It is a paradox that today the main concern of the parents is still what will happen to our children when we're not here anymore. In April 2023, the participants of this network traveled 1,500 kilometers in order to participate in the first uh, conference at Latin American level. We crossed the Atlantic Ocean almost to the Pacific Ocean in order to learn about the work that some organizations were carrying out in different areas of the country. We were surprised that to learn that many of us just needed to jump into a taxi to get together and learn about what we were doing. We decided after this encounter to change the situation. Amalia San Román and Sofía Reyes, they are representatives of Plena Inclusion, and they witnessed the warmth of this meeting and the declaration of principles. Since then, we started working very quickly in different areas with the purpose of influencing public policies of the sector. And we wanted to have considered in the national system of subsidies the figure of the personal assistant and the model of support for independent life, so that we had a clear source of funding so that these initiatives could be carried out in our territory. We worked together very closely. We were very enthusiastic, but there was not much that we could do. The politicians involved were not fast enough in fulfilling their duties. And at the end of the year, the national elections changed the course, and many rights are being challenged today. And it has become very complicated for us to participate in the decision-making processes. We are focused in the work that we carry out in our community, and we realized that we had many things to tell in this gathering, to tell about our experiences. We decided to tell you about our achievements, but we also wanted to share with you the difficulties that we are encountering. What are the practices that were successful, and what are the practices that we could not push forward? We wanted to find also the criteria to identify new ways of exploring the community connections and to point at new paths. Many of the actions that we are carrying out from our institutions are not considered within the framework of subsidies, so that they're not legitimized and they're not supported or strengthened. And this forces us to walk on a thin line between the legal and illegal activities. And definitely the budget is not sufficient. There are tensions between the families, the professionals that are involved, the media, the lawyers, that really do not support people with disabilities as people who can really make their own decisions with a certain support. When we have when something comes up that we did not expect, we're always trying to find the adult in the room. And all these insurances, for instance, can only cover the issues when there is an adult present, an institutional adult that is with the person having a disability 24 hours a day. Within this framework and the lack to pair this with the lack of budget, creativity is something that we need to rely on strongly. In our country, there's this expression that we use a lot, which is to tie things with wire. I don't know if the interpreter can fully explain what this means. We are referring to this wire that we can use for putting things together when they break down. And when we don't really have a permanent solution or a permanent piece to replace the one that has been broken. In Europe, we suppose that when a part is broken, we just can buy the same part and replace the old one. In Argentina, many cars, many electrical appliances, and many objects that we use on a day-to-day basis, we repair them with whatever we have at hand. And this happens to be very often a piece of wire. So you just need to be smart, and you just need to find someone close to you that can help you do this patch-up of the broken part. When we were reflecting on what we wanted to tell you in this webinar, we realized that these friendly hands tend to be just very near us in the community, in the neighborhood. This is where we found the support, the places to carry out sport activities, the place to really circulate our products and to and help to combat the risks that we find in the street. We found also people needing our support, and that can actually be the object of of the products that we offer. We found also conflicts at a neighborhood level that require our knowledge in order to deal with the authorities. We have the capacity to organize, to collaborate in these neighborhood activities. There are many volunteers that are very strong-willed and have a lot of energy, and they want to participate in solidarity days, for instance, or they want to raise awareness about the environment. The organization is in this way valued by the contributions that we make, and we give visibility to the people who have disabilities, and we are part of this social fabric of the community. We cannot really forecast what the results will be. This is just part of a journey. This is the shared activities, and these are part of the exchanges that we have. And sometimes the experiences that come out of this are transformative, and they give rise to new opportunities, and they differentiate themselves from other proposals that are away from this right to take risks of the people. We have found out that in a society where the need and the scarcity of things prevail, where there are many organizations at a neighborhood level that want to fight the suffering and to fight for the rights, these organizations are really the balance against uh, the against despair, so to speak. The community brings to the territory the idea of nothing about us without us, and they open up the possibility to test the idea of nothing with us without the others. And with this, I'll leave the floor to Naila. In order to wrap up this first part of our presentation, we would like to reinforce some of the ideas that Pablo mentioned before. The history and the development of all the organizations that make up this network are inscribed in this history that Pablo told you about in a few minutes. We are located in different parts of Argentine, and we started out at different moments in history. Some of us where there was no system of services that we mentioned before. We came about based on the needs and the questions that the families were asking themselves about the future. What will happen when I'm not here? What will happen after my children finish school? And or why my brothers and sisters can have friends and I can't? Other institutions were created where there was this services system in place, and they had to adjust themselves to the framework that existed in order to obtain funding, and also they needed to use the system to articulate their own structures. Some organizations have been created by fathers, by their parents, other were created by families, and they were evolving towards a blended management. We were growing as the population grew and the challenges increased, and others came about in order to cover the gaps that the institutions could not provide for. So this is the diversity that really is what characterizes us, that is our main trait, and they all represent the history of the association movement in Argentine. We joined forces, we joined our purposes and our projects. We share, among others, the following convictions. We want to promote the full exercise of the right to independent life among people with disabilities, which is an urgent need. The independent life needs to be within the community. The quality of life increases when everyone is part of the community. The relations that we want to promote are based in interdependence. These are reciprocity relations in welcoming communities, and the structured work, the collective work among the different organizations in the civil societies are becoming more and more important, and they enrich us as a society. And beyond this work that we do for the rights of people with disabilities, our positioning based on the experience of the disabilities forces us to look into the community and the community participation context, because we understand that is in this place where we can really build and create the conditions for a full citizenship for everyone. Our society requires of a strong civil territory, and organizations have a very powerful opportunity there because we have had experiences, and these experiences, as Pablo said, really can uh, seed the ground so that people can with disabilities can be part of their own environments. And through the work within the network, we can discover that the importance that we have in the community really promote the circularity, the exchange of services and products for the mutual benefit among the parties. It allows us to develop different capacities, and we can also implement new capacities within the community. We can promote the local economy. We can promote inclusion of everyone so that every person is part of this community and can contribute to the community. And it also allows us to increase the ability of solving problems and unexpected events, and to sustain the projects over time. When it comes to conquering the rights of people with disabilities, we realize that the organizations in Argentina have had a major role, and we have always pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Now that we are working in a network, we understand that all our experiences and all our knowledge acquires a higher value, and we are supporting the communities in order to grow in terms of the exchanges that take place, and also in terms of the mutual care that we implement. Also, we can have a new outlook on what is happening at the moment in terms of the rights that we have. We wanted to share the actions that the organizations are carrying out from the perspective of the successes that we have seen, and also the things that have not gone so well. But also, we wanted to present our history and our context in the upcoming webinar. We will share with you the strategies and the specific actions that we are carrying out in and with the community. And without further ado, we are going to leave the floor to Angel Val, who is the General Director of the Institute of Social Services of the region of Aragon, and Esteban Corsino, sorry, is responsible for Mi Casa and a life in community in Plena Inclusion. My name is Esteban Corsino. I am in charge of the project Mi Casa in Aragon. I will be taking the floor first, and then I will leave the floor to Angel Val within this brief part where we're going to be talking about this project. But I would like to give you more human outlook and what the travel that we have done has given us. I will be sharing my screen to show you some pictures that can probably tell you more than what I can tell you myself. From the 20th to the 23rd of May this year, over 40 managers and professionals from Plena Inclusion and the different organizations participating in the Mi Casa project, and representatives from the autonomous regions, governments, representatives. We traveled in order to get to know the processes that were being implemented in Scotland in order to establish these alliances and create these connections. And this is the part that really interests me today, because first of all, we felt at home there. And this really brought about a sense of community and belonging. In particular, I remember that I had to run to the different boarding gate to catch the plane. I think even some people missed their planes. I remember the hotel, the bus, all those informal spaces for the exchanges helped us a lot in terms of creating this sense of belonging and community. And everything that our Scottish colleagues organized, uh, what they did really made us feel at home. And this is something that I have brought home with me. And the way that they organized all these encounters felt very familiar, very informal, very cozy, if you want. And this also made us feel part of something bigger. This is something that showed us that we were not alone, that we are going with extremely good partners in our journey to organize these services in the community. Also, we saw that these hierarchy models were disrupted because beyond our roles, our functions, there were managers, there were technicians, there were people responsible from the local authorities. We all shared knowledge and experiences without the barriers that oftentimes our day-to-day lives impose. Because sometimes we were sitting on the grass in a park, or we were having a beer, or moving from one service to the next, and this allowed relations to flow in a more natural manner. So beyond our roles and our positions, or we were merely people, and we all shared everything that we want to see in the world. And this created a sense of trust and mutual understanding. And I would like to say that this experience helped us to see each other as people sharing a purpose. And purpose is something that is definitely key as a team, as a network, as citizens. The fact that we could share this shared purpose and this experience really contributed to these feelings. As you can see there, this is our path. The the hashtag Nuestro Camino means our path. We heard many interesting things from our Scottish colleagues, and there was something in particular that was that our Scottish colleagues insisted on quite often, which is about a different model, a model centered around self-directed uh, systems and the services that the people are the ones who choose the services that they want to use in order to have a full life. And people there were telling us that they had been where we are at the moment, and that is good for the people. And they they told us not to give up and that we just needed to keep working to get to where they are at the moment. And this support was very important. The point where we are right now is right the place where we need to be in order to move forward. And finally, you see also the hashtag Nos lo creemos. We believe it. So at the end of the journey, we got together by the different delegations from the different autonomous regions. And with one hashtag, we wanted to reflect what the takeaway from this visit. And I wanted to share the hashtag that we suggested from my region, Aragón. Nos lo creemos, we believe it, is the hashtag that we chose. And I would like to speak from the viewpoints of the representatives that went to Scotland. With this travel, all our colleagues demonstrated that they were fully committed, and they were not only there, but they also participated. They got involved and they contributed. And these words are key when in our field. And all these representatives from the local authorities really participated and really contributed. They asked questions, they shared their opinions. And with all this together, we came about with this hashtag, we believe in it. And from this, we reach the institutional commitment. And from my specific autonomous region, Aragon, we feel that there is a true commitment. And with that, I will leave the floor to the director of the Institute of Social Services of the region of Aragon, Ángel Val. He also attended these sessions in this trip. He contributed in a very intense manner, and I think that he is a person that really can explain what his experience was in this journey, and would be it. That would be all from me. Angel, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Esteban. The truth is that I feel a bit shy to speak with you, with people who are doing this professional work that is very commendable and that make uh, uh, that really make change a reality. So I would just uh, say a few words. I would like to say hi to you, Esteban, to Sofia, and other people that I'm with whom I think that we shared some days that I am really finding it hard to find the right words to describe this, because when I went there, I was this politician that was there. I know a bit about this topic because I can be engaged by, but will I be able to contribute with anything? But for me, the 19th of May was a day where I had this idea of what the services for people with disabilities was. And when I came back from this trip, my idea had completely changed. And I say this from the bottom of my heart. When I received an invitation to participate in this seminar, I was very happy to receive it, and I take the opportunity of for congratulating the organizers for organizing it and being able to go deeper into everything that this entails. I think that are a lot of things that need to be done in my autonomous region, obviously also in Spain, but I will talk about my specific region. To me, this was an incredible experience. I could exchange with people who are living on a day-to-day basis, the experience of helping people with disabilities. And those were induction days for me because aside of the colleagues that were there in Scotland, we got to see different experiences that on the 18th or 19th of May, I would have never believed. And I was there. I was living that. I was seeing that. And in some of the pictures that Esteban showed, um, I am in one of them, I'm talking with one of the people from Scotland, and this was a person who had chosen certain services in this context of self um, of independent living, of self-directed model. And obviously, the autonomous regions always have to take into account the budgets that we have. But I would like to say that in Aragon, we would share the experience of Mi Casa, and we would make sure that it is sustainable in the coming years. And I believed in this idea when I was in Scotland, and I'm working for that now. Yesterday, I met up with institutions from the third sector because most of the activities related to people with disabilities are in the hands of the third sector. And we need to exchange with them the challenges, the concerns that we have, the sustainability paths for the different entities, and the difficulties that they encounter in order to be sustainable themselves. And we were talking about something that I think is important from the regional government in Aragon. We do not want to break completely with the things that we have been doing up until now, but the entities know that from the Department of Family and Welfare, and in particular from the Institute of Social Services of this region, we are going to be betting on the implementation of this new model. Despite all the difficulties that we might be finding in the future and the budgetary constraints that we might encounter, but we believe that this is the goal that we need to set for ourselves. And despite all these difficulties that the entities might encounter, we agreed on the conciertos, or the framework agreement, in order to ensure the continuity of the entities by stating certain prices for each of the spaces, depending on the different services and particularities. And we betted on sustaining a similar line of work that we have been um, implementing up until now, but also at the same time having a parallel group that moves everything towards the vision that I got to know in Scotland. And I think that we need to keep working towards that. My idea is that in Aragon, there are certain entities like Plena Inclusion and TEDx, Kairos. There are different entities that are betting very clearly, as many others, but specifically these institutions, they're betting on this model. They want to participate in this, and they also have a professional commitment for moving this forward. And this facilitates things for the institutions, because when we see this collaboration with the entities from the third sector, we're always asked about ensuring the service and having a control over the type of support that we are providing, the surveillance, the oversight of the agreements that we reach. But I am very proud to say that in my region, this third sector is giving us clear, real responses. And I think it is important to have loyalty when we are working among different actors. And in the last day, in the lunch that we held, that was held in Edinburgh, I said that Aragon will join in this Mikasa project and will be working on this in the future. And I have to say that in the proposal that we brought to the table yesterday, we specifically mentioned the Mikasa project and all the activities and actions that can be carried out through this project. So this is why I was so pleased to participate in this seminar today. And I would like to thank you um, for organizing this webinar. And I am very grateful. I know that you will keep working in this line of work. I know that you're very persevering, and I know that you will be working on this in the future. So let me tell you that Aragon will support you, and I would really regret it if we kept lagging behind. We need to be in the avant-garde, in the front line, and I don't think that this will be fully accomplished in 3 or 4 years. I think this is a long-lasting process, but I know that the goals that you have set for yourselves will become a reality, specifically because this is aimed at improving the quality of life of the people with disabilities and the people supporting these people who are part of this community that are most in need of this support. So to all those organizations who want to count on us, I want to tell them that rest assured that Aragon will be there providing as much support as we can in anything that we can do. And thank you again for inviting me to participate in this webinar today. Well, Angel, thank you very much once again. for telling this in a personal way, in a beautiful way. It is true that having this experience was very important for all of us. And I want to thank you also for letting us know of your commitment with such generosity to extend this commitment to all the institutions and organizations who want to join us in this journey. Now, I will leave the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Marcus Vahala, who uh, is part of the Citizen Network of Self-Directed Support. He is the Director of International Affairs of Kokonori, an organization based in Finland. He works in the field of disabilities since 1998. And Kokonori is a network that encompasses over 25 Finnish organizations that care for 12,000 people with disabilities and their families. Marcus Vahala is the director of a project called Propelipa, which means the helix heads in Spanish, and he is also helping with the organizational work for non-governmental organizations. And he also works in a lab where they develop new strategies and models with the goal of supporting flexible methods that are also efficient and performing in the creation of non-governmental organizations in this field. Marcos is the national coordinator of the national network in Finland and has worked in the Citizen Network from the very beginning. He's very committed to the international work, and he has worked in the promotion of international programs for the youth, to promote sports, to support people with disabilities, and this is also related with arts. And in his spare time, if he has any, because he's doing so many things at the same time, but in the little spare time that he might have, he's also the director of the NGO Synerga that encompasses activists and organizations. He's also interested in electronic music, and he is also participating in a hip hop group, and he has I can't imagine how you have so time to devote to music, which is so important, obviously, but I will leave the floor to you now. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Muchas gracias, Esteban. And hola, everybody. And I'm Markus from Finland, but at the moment I'm in Estonia, together with people from Scandinavia and from Baltic countries, together with our friends from Ukraine, thinking how we can rebuild Ukraine with caring neighborhoods, citizenship, and constructing new kind of living environments through modular housing. So today we have so much talent in this call that I need your help. We need to come together and generate a worldwide network on self-direction. Self-direction is very important in our path to create a global network that cherishes our values and ensures human rights for all. So we need to understand the progress of self-direction globally, clarify key terms and standards together, set out key principles of good self-direction, identify good practice and obstacles to progress, share information across the whole community, support ongoing network development globally, and support advocacy locally, nationally, and globally. So it's a huge global challenge. And thanks to Plena and our Spanish friends, now it's the time to move forward and meet each other and build the world of self-direction together by arranging global online meetups, joining the national online meetups, and creating local action. And we work closely with other citizen networks. There are plenty things that are joining in. We are joining the Global Leadership Exchange and working with other international organizations and Plena Inclusion. And why self-directed support network? We are continuing the long history of inclusion work, a movement with over 50 years of human rights work for and with and by people with intellectual disabilities. The self-direction, as we know, is becoming the norm in disability support in Europe and elsewhere. We need our collective forces to get that done. There's new challenges emerging, the change of what good life in society is. We are talking about individualism. The Argentinian friends were talking about interdependence, where we have higher standards in life. There's a lack of public funding, economic principles directing the philosophy of care. We need to create an alternative to this. The organizations not providing care that is based on human rights and individual needs, we need to change our perspective, our philosophy, and our action towards citizenship and caring neighborhoods. There's a need for holistic, sustainable, and resilient ways in care. And there's a need to cherish, to protect, develop, and strengthen the inclusion movement through SDS network. We bring people together at the moment. There's more than 300 individuals. If we are 100 here on this call, we will grow very rapidly, and we create a shared strategy in creating the world of self-direction. There's on the chat, you can find the link to our website with resources, news, and important information on self-direction. And we also have created the standards of self-direction, 17 standards for anyone to reflect with in your life and in your work. This is very important to have these in Spanish and to work together to show them what they are in reality in your local communities. We are mapping the world of self-direction. We are inviting you to map in your countries where are the people, where are the innovators in self-direction. We are creating research, solution, and peer power to your work in your area to advance human rights for all everywhere. And creating a global network with national approach, we are now launching the Spanish-speaking networks. So we will, when you join SDS network, we invite you to powerful technological platforms that allow us to communicate in 35 languages, working on and around self-direction. So you don't need to know English, you can use Spanish, and other people can use their own languages, like our friends from Ukraine. And how to get involved, there's a link to subscribe and get involved. If you want to make action happen, there's a group of activists inside these powerful platforms where we can communicate and collaborate. You can join our next global event on the 16th of October on mapping the world of self-direction. You can share news, resources, material, ideas, innovations, and solutions. I know you have them. We have heard many of these today. Please share them with us so we can share them on our website. You can become an insider and sponsor the network. We have a growing number of sponsors, national and global sponsors, so join in. And join and take leadership in self-direction. Email me or link with any of our national coordinators. So it's an interesting time, exciting time, so we can come together and form the Spanish-speaking SDS networks. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you, Sophia, who will lead us forward. Where are we going next?
We'll meet on the 15th of October in the second seminar, where we will be learning about the communities of care. We hope that you will have an excellent Thursday afternoon. A big hug to everyone, and goodbye.